There's a growing belief that you can power your entire home using a simple DIY energy system, and on the surface, it sounds logical. Rising electricity costs, unstable grids, and the appeal of energy independence have pushed more people to look for alternatives they can control themselves. So naturally, the idea of building your own home energy setup feels not just possible but practical. But here's where things start to get more complicated. Most people who explore DIY energy systems don't start from zero. They research solar panels, battery storage, maybe even small wind setups. They compare kits, watch tutorials, and try to piece together a system that fits their needs, and initially, it feels like progress. Panels are installed, components are connected, energy starts flowing, but then something unexpected happens. The output doesn't match the expectation, energy production fluctuates more than anticipated, storage doesn't last as long as planned, and instead of reducing reliance on the grid, the system becomes something that still needs constant support from it. That gap between expectation and reality is where frustration begins to build, because on paper, the system should work, the components are there, the setup seems correct. So why does it still feel unreliable? At first, most explanations stay on the surface. People blame weather conditions, they assume they need more panels. Or they think the issue is simply battery capacity, and while those factors do matter, they don't fully explain the inconsistency. Because the real issue isn't the idea of DIY energy itself. It's the assumption that assembling components is the same as building a functional system. There's a structural layer that often goes unnoticed. Energy systems aren't just about generation, they're about balance, production, storage, and consumption all need to be aligned in a very specific way. If one part is slightly off, the entire system starts behaving unpredictably. It's similar to trying to fill a tank with a pipe that only runs intermittently, even if the pipe is capable of delivering enough water over time. The inconsistency creates gaps, and those gaps are exactly what most DIY setups struggle with, because energy demand inside a home isn't constant. IT spikes. It drops. It changes throughout the day, and unless the system is designed with that variability in mind, it can't respond efficiently. This is where many DIY approaches start to fall short, not because they lack power but because they lack coordination. The real turning point comes when you shift the perspective. The real issue isn't generating energy, it's managing it. Once you understand that, the entire conversation changes. Instead of asking, how do I produce more energy? The question becomes, how do I make the energy I produce actually usable when I need it? That's a completely different problem, and it requires a different kind of solution. Some systems try to address this through smarter distribution, others focus on optimizing storage cycles, and some introduce ways to stabilize output so it becomes more predictable. But the key idea is this: without structure, more energy doesn't automatically mean more independence, and this is where a lot of confusion comes from. Because many solutions emphasize production numbers, more watts, more panels, more output, but they don't always address how that energy flows through the system, and that's the part that determines whether a DIY setup actually works in real life or just in theory. Understanding this doesn't mean DIY systems don't have value, they absolutely can, but their effectiveness depends on how well the entire system is designed, not just how powerful each part is individually. And that's a subtle distinction that changes everything, because once you see it, you stop chasing isolated upgrades, and you start thinking in terms of system behavior. If you want a deeper breakdown of how these systems are structured and what actually makes them work in real-world conditions, there's a practical guide linked in the description. It walks through the core principles in a more structured way, and if this kind of analysis helps you see things differently, consider subscribing.